a party, I jokingly told him that I cheated on him. Now he wants a divorce. Hey Reddit, I never thought a casual house party could turn my life upside down. But here I am, pouring my heart out after a joke turned into my literal nightmare. Let me share how a simple joke that I made in good faith is about to end my marriage. I'm honestly ranting on here because I have no idea about what to do. I'm so confused and I see this subreddit on social media a lot, so I think I could actually get some amazing advice from on here. I love my husband and want to save my marriage, so I'm going to give you guys a little backstory to this whole situation. My name is Chloe, I'm 24 years old. My husband's name is Timothy and he is also 24. We've been together since college, but we've only been married for a few months now. We live in the United States. I met him for the first time and I knew immediately that he was the one I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. He was charming, handsome, smart, everything I wanted in my dream man. We dated for a while before he finally popped the question, which was a few months ago. It was absolutely amazing. We went on our honeymoon and we just came back about, like I just said, a few months ago. I've always been a bit of a jokester and prankster, and well, Timothy has always been more of a serious person. Timothy was always a bit, like I said before, overly serious. So I didn't think much of it because I understand that different people had different personalities in life. His seriousness meant he was a bold, driven individual who always got what he put his mind towards. He had a great career that he had worked hard on, and he was earning well. Our house was even a gift from his parents. I admired Timothy's dedication and ambition. He was the kind of person who set goals and achieved them, no matter the obstacles. It was one of the things that attracted me to him in the first place, the way he carried himself with such confidence and purpose. As I mentioned earlier, Timothy's job allowed me to enjoy the role of being a somewhat stay-at-home wife. While I wouldn't strictly define myself as such because I did work, it was more of a part-time job at an art gallery. This job granted me a certain level of flexibility and freedom that I cherished. This balance between work and personal life kept me happy and satisfied. Though honestly, the pay wasn't great. It was okay for covering some expenses, but Timothy's job brought in the big bucks. The night of the incident is still pretty fresh in my mind, as it happened just a day ago. It was a typical Friday night, and Timothy, who is usually swamped with work, was surprisingly free for the weekend. We decided to kick off the weekend by attending a house party hosted by our mutual friends. The atmosphere at the party was lively, like I'm talking laughter, games, and plenty of drinks. We were all having a great time, enjoying each other's company and catching up on various topics. At one point, the conversation steered toward an ex-friend of ours who had recently cheated on her husband, leading to their divorce. This ex-friend had been cut off from our circle due to her behavior, so we found the situation somewhat amusing. In a lighthearted manner, one of my friends made a joke about how forgiving her husband would have been if she had been the one to cheat. Taking the joke further, I jokingly remarked that if I had been our ex-friend, my husband would never have discovered it. My husband then jokingly remarked that he would have discovered if I cheated. I then countered with another joke that he wouldn't have, and that I know this because I did cheat on him and he didn't find out. To my surprise, everyone except my husband joined in the laughter, finding the situation funny and taking it as a lighthearted joke. As the night went on, I couldn't shake this weird feeling about my husband. His mood completely shifted, and he went from laughing and chatting to being all quiet and distant. I could tell something was up, even though I was a bit tipsy. Normally, he's pretty good at hiding his feelings, especially around other people. But that night, he was like a closed book. He barely talked to me, and when he did, it was like pulling teeth to get a response out of him. I kept asking if he was okay, but he either brushed me off or snapped back with short answers. By the time we left the party and headed home, the tension between us was so evident. I tried one last time to check on him, and he just said, "I'm fine," in a way that clearly meant he wasn't. It was obvious something was eating at him, but he wasn't ready to spill the beans just yet. After my husband's cold behavior at the party, I decided to give him some space and time to process whatever was bothering him. I knew from experience that pushing him to talk when he wasn't ready would only make things worse. So I focused on getting us home and settled in for the night. I cooked us dinner, hoping it would lighten the mood, but my husband barely touched his food. It was clear that something serious was on his mind, and eventually he broached the subject. He asked me directly if I had really cheated on him. The question caught me off guard because the joke at the party was just that, a joke. However, I could understand his skepticism given our history. Back in college, at the start of our relationship, I made a mistake and cheated on him. That was because I didn't think we were that serious yet because we had just started dating. It was a rough patch in our relationship, but it still devastated him as he liked me a lot. I owned up to it, apologized sincerely, and promised it would never happen again. And it didn't. There was also the fact that before I came into his life, my husband had been through a lot of cheating in his previous relationships. It's like each time he trusted someone, they ended up breaking that trust by cheating on him. So when I mentioned cheating as a joke, it must have hit a nerve because he's been hurt so many times before. It's not just a fear. It's like a deep-seated trauma that makes him doubt things even when they're meant as harmless fun. So when my husband questioned me about the joke, I reassured him that I hadn't cheated on him this time either. I explained that it was all in jest and everyone at the party had laughed about it, but he wasn't convinced. He told me it didn't come across as a joke to him and that he didn't take it lightly. I stood my ground, telling him straight up that I hadn't cheated since our early days together. I stressed how crucial trust was in our marriage and practically begged him to trust me. But no matter what I said, his doubts were hanging around him like a dark cloud. Then he asked to see my phone. That honestly made me feel so hurt. I felt angry and hurt, like he didn't trust me one bit. Asking to check my phone felt like he was prying into my private life, and I just couldn't bring myself to hand it over. It felt wrong, like he was crossing a line. At this point, I was on the verge of shouting and had gotten up from where I was sitting and even clutching my phone. Now that I even think about it, that must have made me seem even more suspicious. Throughout it all, he remained calm, almost too calm for such a tense situation. But like I said, he has always been an eerily calm person. Despite his calm demeanor, I stood firm and said no to his request. He insisted, and I said no again, and then he just dropped it and said it was fine. And even when I tried to talk about it later, he brushed it off like it was no big deal. I woke up the next morning, my mind still reeling from the events of the previous night. There was this mix of anger, disappointment, and confusion swirling inside me, like a storm was brewing. It was Saturday, a day that we had promised to spend some quality time together since my husband rarely got weekends off. But after the tension and drama from last night, I wasn't sure if we would be able to enjoy that. As I tried to broach the subject of our plans for the day, hoping against hope that we could somehow patch things up, my husband dropped a bombshell on me. He wanted a divorce. It hit me like a ton of bricks, like literally knocked the wind out of me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He explained that he had spent the entire night wrestling with his thoughts, and he was unable to find peace, and his lack of trust had reached a breaking point. He seemed convinced that my casual joke about cheating had some hidden truth behind it, that I must have cheated on him at some point in the past. It was like a dagger through my heart. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I just started crying because I honestly didn't know what to say. So just imagine me, tears rolling down my cheeks, utterly shocked and heartbroken by what my husband had just told me. I never expected a simple joke to lead to this. He looked at me with such sadness and guilt, and it tore me apart. He admitted that the joke had been eating away at him all night, and it had left him unable to shake off the doubt and insecurity. It was like a heavy weight on his shoulders that he couldn't bear anymore. Despite my pleas and offers to prove my faithfulness, he wanted a divorce. I was floored and still am. I begged him to reconsider, to give us another chance, but he seemed stubborn. I even suggested he could check my phone, but he refused. I suggested he put an AirTag on me, and still he refused. No matter how much I promised to change or offered solutions, he remained stubborn in his decision. In a last-ditch effort, I suggested taking the day apart to clear our minds and think things through. Maybe some time alone would help us see things more clearly. But deep down, I fear that even this wouldn't mend this rift that has formed between us. So here I am right now, pouring my heart out to strangers on the internet. I honestly don't know what to do or what I should be doing. Any advice would be appreciated because at this point I need it. We were literally so happy yesterday. If I had known this was going to happen, I would have never made that joke, or I would have made sure that we skipped the house party altogether. But my mom always used to say that if wishes were horses, beggars would ride. Like I mentioned before, any advice would honestly be appreciated. Thanks. Update. Hey everyone, it's me again. It's been a week and I'm back to update you on what's been happening. First off, I want to say thanks for all the advice and support I received after my last post. It's been a whirlwind to say the least. I did kind of make this post because I really needed a place to rant, and I thought I would get some really good advices here, which I did, but I honestly didn't think I would actually come back to update it. In fact, my account is in fact a throwaway account because I didn't intend on using it again, but I've been getting a lot of DMs on the account, and this post of mine really became popular, so I guess I'm going to have to update you guys. So there's that. And to reply to some comments that I just couldn't ignore, a lot of you kept asking me if I cheated. Like I said in my original post, no, I did not cheat. The only time I cheated was back in college and I owned up to it, so please stop asking me that. And please stop saying that I cheated or saying that you bet I cheated, and that my husband must want a divorce because he found out I cheated. A lot of you all also said that I was hiding some details to make myself seem better, and that what I posted couldn't honestly be the full story. I am not hiding any details. I wish I could say more, but there's nothing more to be said. That is literally everything that happened. What do y'all want to hear? Either way, after my husband dropped the whole ball that he wanted a divorce, we had a long, heartfelt conversation. I poured my heart out, trying to make him see that we could work through this, but he remained firm in his decision. It left me feeling lost and unsure of what to do next. I mentioned to him that therapy could be beneficial for both of us, especially considering his anxiety and our strained relationship. He agreed that therapy was something he needed, but he still wanted a divorce. It was a tough pill to swallow, knowing that he was set on ending our marriage. Many of you suggested couples counseling, and I brought that up to him. He said he would think about it, but his mind was still leaning towards divorce. Feeling desperate, I reached out to his mom, hoping she could talk some sense into him. Unfortunately, her response was less than helpful. She seemed to echo his sentiments, suggesting that if he wanted a divorce, maybe it was for the best. I was livid and ended up hanging up on her. I couldn't believe her lack of support and understanding. Because what the absolute fuckery? We were so happy only a few days ago. What the fuck does she mean by if he wants a divorce, I should give it to him? I honestly hung up on her. I know she's going to complain to my husband that I was being very disrespectful, but I couldn't give two fucks about he because she's just crazy, to be honest. On the brighter side, I called my parents and they were a lot more supportive. They emphasized the importance of therapy and counseling and pushed my husband to give it a try. After much discussion, we agreed that if therapy and counseling didn't improve our situation, we would go our separate ways. I also realized that I might need therapy for myself to navigate through this difficult time. It's been a really tough journey since our conversation about divorce. I managed to schedule a therapy appointment for us in 2 weeks, so now it's all about waiting and hoping for the best. I've been making an effort to be overly nice and generous to my husband, but it feels like he's emotionally checked out of our relationship. His kindness towards me feels more like how a close friend would treat another friend, and it's clear that he's guarding himself to avoid getting hurt again. The most heartbreaking part is the lack of intimacy between us. We still sleep in the same bed, but there's no physical closeness anymore. Whenever I try to initiate anything intimate, he freezes up and gently tells me that he's just not in the mood for it. It's a huge reminder of how much our relationship has changed and how distant we've become in such a short period of time. I understand his need to protect himself emotionally, especially after everything that's happened. But it's incredibly painful to feel this disconnect between us, to see him pull away when I reach out for closeness. I'm hoping that therapy will help us navigate through these issues and find a way to reconnect. But right now, it feels like we're drifting further apart each day. The kind words and advice from many of you have been a source of comfort, even though a lot of comments were harsh. I'll keep you all updated if there are any major developments. Thanks again for reading. Update. Hello, Reddit. It's been about 3 months since everything unfolded, and I should have updated you all sooner, but it's been a struggle. I appreciate all the support and messages I've received during this time. So let's get into the update. After our therapy sessions, which included individual therapy for both of us and couples counseling, it was pretty hard to fit all this into my husband's schedule, considering how busy it is, but we kind of made it work. It became evident that my husband had emotionally checked out of our relationship. He was responsive to individual therapy and was making progress according to his therapist, but when it came to couples counseling, it felt like he wasn't fully invested. Despite knowing that I would be wrong, I checked his phone constantly until I moved out. I checked his laptop. I checked everything. I even checked the security cameras, and there was nothing and not even any deleted footage. I checked thoroughly and found no evidence of him cheating. He's not the type, and he's always been against infidelity. However, the emotional distance between us persisted, and we ultimately decided to part ways as we had previously agreed upon, so I'm now just waiting to get served. The process of moving out was tough. The house we lived in was in my husband's name, and it was a gift from his parents, so I had to rely on my parents to help me pack and move out. Returning to my parents' home after thinking I had moved on is incredibly painful. I miss my husband deeply, and I regret the chain of events that led us here, especially that house party incident. I've been feeling incredibly sad lately. I miss him like crazy and find myself crying way too often. I'm trying my best to move on, but it's tough. What hurts even more is seeing him seem happier on social media. It makes me wonder if my nagging and complaining drove him away. I mean, I can be a bit of a complainer, I'll admit that. Scrolling through his posts, I can't help but think, is he happier without me bugging him? It's a gut-wrenching feeling. I question if I pushed him away with my constant need to vent and my frustrations over little things. Was I just too much for him to handle? But then I remind myself that social media isn't the whole story. It's just a highlight reel. Maybe he's putting on a happy face to hide his own pain. Maybe he's finding distractions to cope with the breakup. I have my moments of self-doubt, wondering if I'm to blame for everything falling apart. Relationships are complicated, and we all have our flaws. Maybe we both played a part in this. Despite it all, I'm trying to find peace and move forward. I hold on to memories and hope that one day the pain will ease. LOL, now I sound like a poet. For now, though, I'm taking it one day at a time, navigating through my mix of emotions and trying to find my way without him. Update. Hey Reddit, it's good to be back with an update. First off, I want to express my gratitude for all the support and love I've received since my last post. It's been overwhelming in the best way possible. Sure, there have been some harsh comments and people saying I deserved what happened, but those voices don't carry as much weight as the positive ones. The kindness and encouragement I've received, including the direct messages checking up on me, mean the world to me. It's been 4 months since my last update, and I feel like I owe you all a glimpse into what's been happening. Many of you suggested self-care activities and hobbies to help me cope with the pain, and I want to thank you sincerely for those suggestions. They've been incredibly helpful in navigating through this challenging time. One thing I'm grateful for is that nobody here is placing blame solely on my ex or me. The truth is, it wasn't solely his fault or mine. We both played a role, albeit unintentionally, in the circumstances that led to the end of our marriage. It's a realization that has brought some peace amidst the whole shitstorm. As for the legal aspects, we went through the court proceedings and thankfully it was a peaceful process. Given the short duration of our marriage, I didn't receive a substantial settlement, but I did get a reasonable amount of alimony. My ex didn't contest providing financial support, which I appreciate. It shows a level of respect and understanding despite the circumstances. What's surprising is how quickly our marriage came to an end, not even lasting a year. However, on a positive note, my ex and I are on good terms now. We're cordial, almost friends, and who knows, maybe there's potential for something positive in the future. It's a small ray of hope that I'm holding on to as I continue moving forward. Update. Hey Reddit, it's good to be back after quite some time, about a year and a few months to be exact. I logged back into this account and it's interesting to see that there are still requests for an update. While there haven't been major events in my life, I do feel like I owe you all an update. And honestly, I've missed sharing my journey with you. First off, I no longer live with my parents. I've moved into an apartment and share it with a roommate. We weren't close friends before, but she's turned out to be kind and understanding, which I'm grateful for. Living with roommates can be tricky, but I lucked out with her, especially since I've heard some horror stories about bad roommates. On the work front, I had to take on a second job to supplement my income from my primary job. Like I think I've mentioned before, the pay wasn't great. I'm hopeful that I'll land a better job soon, one that allows me to quit the second job and focus on a more stable career path. As for my relationship with my ex, we're still on very good terms. He's been supportive and helpful, and we recently had a deep conversation that was quite insightful. He mentioned that losing me was a catalyst for him to rediscover himself, and those words resonated with me deeply. Plus, they're the lyrics to that Selena Gomez song, LOL. It's a reminder of how challenges can lead to personal growth and self-discovery. Both my ex and I are currently single, and we're taking this time to focus on ourselves and our respective journeys. I want to express my gratitude to everyone here for their support and encouragement. Your words and insights have helped me navigate through difficult times, and I'm in a better place now thanks to all of you. You know, sometimes coming from a big family comes with a price of betrayal and disloyalty. The person or the people you had thought had your back turned your back on you and betrayed you in a most cruel way. When you report the issue to the elders, they take the other person's side. I don't know if you understand me. I had brought someone from the outside who I thought would build and extend my home, but instead, she extended someone else's home, and that person was my cousin. Imagine. It's still hard talking about this. In order to heal, I have to share it and move on. As hard as it is, I have to man up and face the music, no matter how bad the tune is. Some will understand what I'm talking about, and some will catch it later. So I, M33, am naturally a quiet and reserved person. I love peace, but people take that for a ride. I got married when I was only 23 years old. I thought I had found my soulmate or the right person to share my life and grow old with, not knowing that I was actually bringing someone who would be my worst nightmare. I grew up in a village that was ruled by a king, meaning we live by rules. And if you ever do something unlawful, the king and the village people will ban you. A man had to go to the reed dance where maidens usually do their singing and traditional dancing competitions. Also to do a termly checkup if they were still pure virgins. So young and old men would attend the dance, some to watch the maidens and some to choose wives for themselves. My father was in a polygamous marriage. He had 3 wives and he chose all of them from the reed dance a long time ago. In our village, a man had to have more than 2 wives who would bear him children to expand the family surname. That tradition started way back from our great ancestors, till now it's still in operation. But nowadays, some choose maidens to use them for their selfish reasons. Some old men would choose young girls to become their wives at a young age. It's disgusting and shameful, I tell you. So I found my wife, or must I say my ex-wife, during the reed dance. My father had asked me and my brothers to go and watch it. Maybe we would get ourselves wives. Well, to tell the truth, I didn't want a wife. I was still young to have a wife. I still wanted to enjoy my young life, but if you are a boy from the villages that are ruled by kings, and your father is a king's servant, it's compulsory for us to get wives, not those city wives, but well-respected and dignified wives from the village. So there was this beautiful lady that had caught my eyes. She was a medium-sized, dark woman. She was dancing so beautifully, I was taken back, no lie. Until it was her turn to do the dance, she danced and came to my direction. I had thought she was going to choose one of my brothers. Only to see her coming straight to me, she took my hand and put on a beaded bracelet that symbolizes that she had chosen me to be her boyfriend. I was really taken back by her act. She was really amazing as she was doing her dance. A week later, we had started seeing and knowing each other on another level. She was polite and very humble. Her smile was so beautiful, and it complemented her beauty so well. I enjoyed every moment I had spent with her. Our relationship kept growing to a point that a few months later, I told my father that I was ready to take a wife. I then decided to take the next step and ask my uncles and brothers to stand in on my behalf to go to Pamela's F30 homestead to ask for her hand in marriage. After everything was done traditionally, we asked to get married in church only. Our relationship was a bliss. Well, at least that's what I had thought. Pamela was so sweet and loved people, so she got along very well with my siblings, especially my male cousin. I had thought that their friendship was pure and innocent since they were the same age. I took Pam as my wife when she had just turned 20 and she had dreams of going to university to further her studies. So I had to make a plan as her husband to make sure that she achieves her dreams and goals. That time I was working at Transnet as a transport admin clerk, so I was able to afford her fees. The following year, Pam got enrolled at Durban University of Technology, which was far away from our village. As much as I was not comfortable for her to live in the city, but she had to chase her dreams, and my cousin was also attending the same university. So I was somehow relieved that at least one of the people I trusted was there with her. I would see my wife during school holidays or when I was not working, so I had to drive to Durban to see her. Sometimes I would find her at the students' accommodation chilling with my cousin. I didn't pay much attention to that because I trusted them, thinking they would never betray me, but I guess I had to trust a stone than a human being. So 3 years passed, and Pamela graduated from university. In her first year in university, she got pregnant, and unfortunately, we lost the pregnancy. I was really heartbroken, so was Pam, but her situation was worse because she even distanced herself. She started spending more time with my cousin even when she was home. She was no longer doing her wifely duties as she was supposed to. I had thought she was grieving, but can a person grieve for the whole 3 years, and during those years, you would see her beautiful smile and loud laugh when she was with my cousin? When she was with my cousin, she would be smiling more and carefree. I once confronted them about their close friendship, but they denied my allegations, even though my conscience was telling me another story. Their coziness and the way they were free with each other raised an eyebrow. I am a person who loves doing morning runs to freshen my mind and get a good morning breeze before going to work. I once asked Pam to join me and got offended thinking I was body shaming her. I didn't understand her outburst because she allowed my cousin to call her fat when they were teasing each other. So I let her be and continued to do my runs. Sometimes I would do long runs if I wanted to clear my head. So one Sunday afternoon, I had just returned home from a long run. I walked into the living room and saw my wife and cousin sitting on the couch, laughing and chatting like they were old friends. I felt a sudden pang of unease, but I brushed it off as mere paranoia. Plus, they had told me that there was going on when I had confronted them. But as I watched them, I noticed something strange. My wife and cousin were being too familiar with each other, too touchy-feely. They were sitting too close, their legs touching, and their hands resting on each other's knees. I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. My suspicions got high, and I decided to investigate this issue to ease my conscience, but I was really confident that something was really going on between the two. So I decided to investigate further. I started asking questions again, pretending to be oblivious to what was going on. But my wife and cousin were too clever. They saw right through my act. They denied everything, telling me I was being paranoid and reading too much into their friendship. But I knew the truth. I could feel it in my bones. And I was determined to uncover the truth, no matter what it took. As the days passed, I became more and more obsessed with uncovering the truth. I started following my wife and cousin, watching their every move. I would wait for them not too far from their favorite spot near the river, or follow them when they were saying they were going to town. My wife would say she was accompanying my cousin to town. I was determined to catch them in the act, to see for myself what was going on. I didn't take my wife's accompanying cousin to town. During my investigation, I once took my wife's phone. I knew her password since she also knew mine. I checked her socials and found out that she had been sending my cousin her pictures wearing lingerie. More like different ones. I didn't even know that she had lingerie. There were also videos of my wife doing those seductive dances and sending them to my cousin. I was oblivious about what I saw. I got so angry to a point that I wanted to attack them both. In rural areas, the thing called divorce doesn't exist, especially if you are married traditionally. So Pam and I are tied to each other by God and ancestors. I couldn't even share the same bed as her. She had shown me that she was not the innocent and humble girl I had found or that had chosen in front of my father and siblings. She even gave me a beaded bracelet that symbolizes love, meaning I would be stuck with her till the end of time, unless if she gets married to another family, then the elders would have to consult with the ancestors, my home ancestors, to relieve and allow her to be introduced in another surname and ancestors. Before I took the matter to the adults, I confronted the wife about the videos and her conversation with my cousin. The nerve she had to just stare at me and lie on my face, but I had every proof that she was cheating, so I slapped her hard. She couldn't believe it because I was not a violent person. I respect my peace. After I slapped her, she ran out, and I was pretty sure that she was going to cry to my cousin. My cousin came to me looking deadly. He started fighting me till the fight escalated to a point that my brothers came in to stop the fight. I was furious at the fact that they both had lied to me, to my face, when I asked what was going on. The way I was so angry, I wanted to hurt someone so bad. I mean, how could this girl choose me in front of my family, then she goes and does this shameful act while married to me, with my cousin? The fact that I had trusted them when they went to university together, I thought their friendship was pure. Little did I know that I was made a fool and deceived. My brothers asked us to sit down and solve whatever issue that we had, civilly. I didn't want to solve anything. I wanted them to feel the wrath of making me a fool. The brothers asked what we were fighting about. I told them that I will tell them once I have gathered enough information about the wife of mine and dear cousin. So I became obsessed with finding hard proof, and I wanted the family to know about the snake they were keeping in our yard. I didn't want them to see only pictures and messages because they would definitely deny everything, so I planned to find them on the act. I know it was evil of me, but what would I have done? And finally, after weeks of surveillance, I got my proof. I saw them together, in a secluded spot, their arms around each other, their lips locked in a passionate kiss. I felt a wave of anger and betrayal wash over me, and I knew I had to do something. I took pictures of them, but they were not enough for the family to believe me. I mean, this girl was a virgin when I married her, meaning she started getting loose when I had taken her virginity. After that, she saw a great opportunity to do infidelity, not with someone from university, but she decided to do it with my cousin. The person I live with is in the same yard. That was pure disrespect, and to be taken for a ride. I wanted to show them what being taken for a ride was like. I wanted them to regret the day they first got attracted to each other. A few weeks later, they went back to university. I was obsessed with finding whatever that was going on between. I couldn't rest without finding the hard evidence, so I was able to convince the family to allow me to leave the loose cannon. I kept my wife and cousin's shameful act for a while because I didn't want to be embarrassed in front of the whole family. I know some would say I have failed to rule my house and look at me as a weak man. Already I was feeling like a failure that my wife had chosen to find solace in another man's arms. What pisses me off more is that Pam didn't even bother saying anything. I mean, communication is one of the greatest keys to a successful and strong marriage and relationship. Why did she fail to communicate with me, and why did she agree to marry me knowing very well that she had some feelings for my cousin? I felt like a fool. A few months later, things were getting worse. My wife and cousin were unstoppable to a point that even the elders had noticed the relationship they had. I tried denying so that I would tell them when I have gathered much concrete evidence. So I asked one of the boys from the village who was doing IT at their university to help me plant a camera in my wife's residential room, also in my cousin's room. I couldn't even look my wife in the eyes because in front of the elders she acted like a good wife, while I knew that she was a fox on a sheep's skin. One day she came to our bedroom and asked us to talk. There was nothing I wanted to talk to her about, so I told her to go to her boyfriend's room, but she refused and caused a scene. Thanks to the fact that when we got married, we were forced to build our own house in the yard since it was big enough for plenty of houses. So when she caused a scene and started kicking things, acting like a psycho, I slapped her and she fell on the bed. She started fighting back, but I just took out my belt and whipped her with it. Did I do wrong by acting like that? I was avoiding being called an abuser or a woman beater, so that's why I opted to whip her like a child, because she was acting like one. For the whole month, she went back to university. I missed her, I missed my wife. My mind and body wanted me to drive to Durban so I could see her and maybe apologize. But what would I be apologizing for, because I was a victim in all this ordeal? My heart wanted nothing to do with her. As much as it was heartbreaking and disappointing to know that my wife was attending the same school as my cousin. Where was the bro code there? How could you sleep or even develop a relationship with your cousin's wife? It's just so disgusting and disloyal. A couple of months later, my father and the elders summoned me and Pam to a family meeting regarding the issue that we were facing. I had recently gotten the evidence I was looking for. I couldn't wait to show the family what the Virgin Mary of a wife I had and their precious son, who is my cousin, did, all in the name of we're going to study in Durban, while their study was getting on top of each other doing shameful acts. Worst part, the woman is married, so when she gets to Durban, her panties get loose and forget that she has a husband back at home. I was in so much fury. I wanted to destroy them both for making me a fool. If I was green, I would have looked like Hulk when angry. I was going crazy because I loved this girl. She was my perfect imperfection, but she was a slut. I had thought Virgin Marys were loyal and honest, but I guessed wrong. She became my worst nightmare in a few years of our marriage. Well, I found out when we were a few years into our marriage. Maybe they started sleeping together right after our wedding day. Who knows? So the family called and addressed the issue that we were facing and that there was a big elephant in the room. You wouldn't believe who that big elephant in the room is. It was me. Imagine, I was the big elephant in the room, meaning I was the one on the wrong in all of everything that my so-called wife and my cousin were doing. Their abomination made me look like a bad person. The elders kept talking and yapping about me failing to maintain my house and my wife's needs. I got really pissed off because the very same wife they were defending and telling me that I was failing was the same wife that had asked me that she had a wish to further her studies, but they couldn't afford it at her home. I took that responsibility as her husband and paid for her studies. Now I am an incompetent and failing husband. Those people were shitting on me. I'm telling you. So as they were still blubbering and exchanging words, I asked them to follow me to the lounge. There was something I needed to show them. I then asked them to call cousin, Also because he was also part of the meeting, so I didn't understand why he was not in the room with us. When the cousin was called, I took out the USB that the boy I had paid gave me and put it on a TV, then pressed play. Some elders were in awe when they watched the video of my wife and cousin getting it on in Pam's student room while her roommate was out. Some were shouting at me as if I was a child, telling me to switch the thing off, while others called me heartless and selfish. Well, those who called me heartless and selfish were my cousin's parents, meaning they knew about the abomination that their son was doing with my wife. I remember hearing my cousin's mother saying I was the reason why my wife found comfort in another man's bed. It was because I was not a man enough and didn't have balls to rule and treat a woman. I looked at my parents, waiting for them to at least defend me, but they just looked at me like I had grown horns. That time the video was still playing. I was actually enjoying the show, much to the elders' annoyance, who kept telling me to switch it off. Pam was crying and kept asking that I switch off the video and fix our relationship. I don't know what was happening to me, but I got disgusted the moment she opened her slutty mouth. I switched the video off after I played it for a full 30 minutes. I called Pam's parents to join us because I didn't understand why they didn't call her parents. I mean, if it was a family meeting, both families were supposed to be present, but my family decided to deal with the issue alone and not include my wife's family. A while later, they arrived and I asked for the meeting to continue since all parties and their families were present. I then played the video again so that my in-laws would get an idea of why they were urgently called to the family meeting. Pam was busy weeping like someone had died, while my cousin looked at me like he begged for my blood. But I didn't care less because what they did to me was inhumane. No man would wish to see his wife getting banged by another man. Am I a bad person? The family meeting ended, and I had announced that I wanted to divorce Pam, but as expected, I was told that I can't divorce her because she was already a part of the family ancestrally, and I am connected to her since I was the one who took her innocence. I didn't understand that because even if she was a part of the family ancestrally, she could have still went back to her home, and I had paid for her innocence, so what they were saying was bullshit. A few weeks later, the family called another family meeting since my issue with Pamela was not resolved. Everyone was angry at how the meeting had turned. Names were exchanged, and it was a mess, and to top it all, they were blaming for my wife's infidelity. I would have understood if she had cheated with another boy from her school, but she decided to just cheat with one of my family members. The family sat me down and told me the things I didn't want to hear and I never expected. They pleaded with me to forgive my cousin and move on because what happened had happened. There was no way of changing or undoing what had happened. I couldn't believe them, so I asked if I were to forgive my cousin, what about the wife? Should I forgive her also? I couldn't accept the plea, and I didn't want to because they were taking me for a ride. They didn't take my heartbreak, my dignity, and my place as the victim. I was the victim in all of the situations, so I didn't understand how they could take the side of the people who betrayed me in the most cruel and shameful way. I was not going to forgive them. Pamela's family came to fetch her a month after the meeting had taken place. They were disappointed and hurt by their daughter's act. I assured them that I would continue paying for Pam's university fees so they wouldn't worry about it, but I wanted nothing to do with her. I wanted her gone. My father came to my house a while after my in-laws had departed. He also talked me out about forgiving my family. I didn't understand, and it shocked me that my own father didn't see things in my perspectives, and he didn't care about my feelings, rather the cousin's feelings and well-being. The only people I had support from were my brothers. I would never forget them for the support they had given me during my heartbreak period. About 5 months later, Pam's family came back with Pam. She was pushing a very big stomach. They came to our homestead to report Pam's pregnancy. I just didn't know how to feel about the whole thing because she had told me that she wanted to focus on her modules, so she didn't want any child. I understood her, but she had the nerve to open legs for my cousin and allow him to pull out inside her. What if the guy had a sickness or a virus, and if I didn't find out about the affair they were having, she was going to continue sleeping with me while sleeping with my cousin also. It's just disgusting. So, the family asked who the child belonged to. I thought she was going to tell the truth and there was really no need to ask who the father of the baby was. Instead, she told the family that the child was mine and she won't be able to take care of the child alone while she was still traditionally married and she wanted to come back home to her husband. I told her to take the pregnancy to its rightful owner because I was not going to take any responsibility for the pregnancy I knew nothing about. And the last time I had been intimate with her, we used a protection, her rules. And it was 9 months before. Which meant if the child was mine, she would have given birth by the time she came to my house to report the pregnancy. The hate I had for her grew more and more to a point that I even hated her smell. Why would she do something like that? Was she hoping that I would acknowledge and accept her lies while she knew the truth? I was not going and willing to do such a foolish thing. She should have thought twice before coming to my house to give me the child that was not mine. That thing was not going to affect only me, but the child also, because if I had acknowledged her pregnancy and took responsibility for the child was going to get sick because my cousin and I are not using the same surnames. I still loved her very much, but I couldn't allow her to make me a fool once again. So I threw her and her family out. I didn't care if she fell and got hurt. I was in the mix of hurt and anger. My family kept pestering me about forgiving my cousin because it was not good to stay angry at a family member for too long. In everything they had said, I only noticed that they were only asking me to forgive my cousin, but not my wife. If I asked why, they never mentioned anything or asked me to forgive Pamela also, because they were both on the wrong. The answers I got were, my wife didn't show any respect for herself and the family she got married to, meaning she was the cause of the drift between my cousin and I. The unfairness and politics they had, I didn't want to involve myself in it, so I came up with the decision of forgiving none of them because both of them were the cause of the drift. Things got tense and sour at home. The family was angry at me for having a cold heart, as they had put it. It was no longer a happy and united family. Well, they assumed that I was the one who made things like how they got, because if I had not released or showed them the video and pictures of Pamela and my cousin, none of the family members would be angry at each other. My father took my cousin's side and told me that if I gave my wife time and attention, she wouldn't have fallen in another man's arms, so everything was on me. I couldn't believe my father. I mean, these two people embarrassed me and tarnished my dignity as a man and a husband. Was I not supposed to go to work so I could provide for my wife and be able to pay for her university fees? Was not a man enough by wanting and striving for what's best for my wife and our future children? Please make me understand because I am really failing to. Time passed and I moved out from home because things were no longer the same. My father had started getting sick. My brother said I was the cause of his sickness because of my selfishness. I was shocked when my brothers had also turned their backs on me. I mean, I didn't ask my father to take my cousin's side and not put his own child to his best interests. Instead, he joined the people who wanted to tarnish my name and forced me to forgive my cousin. I had no problem forgiving my cousin, you know? But what pissed me off more is the fact that they were treating my cousin as the victim in everything, and I was the villain. I decided to move out. Well, I got an apartment in the city, so I would be closer to work. But before I moved out, I got cursed by my aunt, cousin's mom, wishing bad luck upon me. That was pure witchcraft and evil of her. How can you curse your brother's child for your son's doings? I was so disappointed with my family, they even made me choose that I should either forgive my cousin or move out of the homestead until I have made up my mind and stop acting like a teenager. I chose to move out, not because I was childish or something, but I wanted them to consider their statements. They were all in the wrong, and I felt like they were acknowledging that the mess my cousin made along with my wife was a good thing. There were two parties in the ordeal, but they wanted me to forgive only one part. How fair is that? A couple of months later, I received a call from Pamela, asking for forgiveness and wanting to fix things. I didn't have time for her and her emotional blackmailing. During those months, Pamela's father passed on, and I was forced to go and pay my respect to the family as a husband, of course. In our culture, you are forced to attend either a funeral or any ceremony for your in-laws because you and that family are lawfully banded to each other, meaning you are one of them even if you and your husband no longer get along. Since we lived in the village that is ruled by the king, what happens in your household must stay and be solved in your household, and make sure that the family household issues do not reach the outside community. Unless if someone has done something unlawful and endangering the villagers, then the issue will be taken to the king. The king will then decide how to punish that sinner and what kind of punishment is good for them. So on the other hand, my issue was a family issue. so I had to pretend in front of the nosy villagers to be in good space with Pamela. It was really hard pretending, but it somehow felt good to be in her presence again, even though my heart was no longer beating for her. It had released her. So I played my good husband and son-in-law role for the whole weekend. It was really hard pretending. People, please don't pretend, rather be rare and real than being fake and famous. It was not nice. Pamela's baby was looking so much like my cousin, and that really added to my hard heart, because she was so sure that the child was mine, knowing very well that I was not the father. What was she hoping to achieve? Because even if the child had turned out to be mine, I wouldn't have gotten back with her, but I would have taken responsibility for my child. The following year, Pamela graduated from university. I was really happy and proud of her. I mean, she showed me that I was not paying for anything, so it made me proud that she took her modules seriously. The relationship of my cousin and Pamela continued. I guess she was not really apologizing when she came to apologize the last time. Their relationship was no longer a secret. Villagers had found out about it, and my family became the talk of the village. Truthfully, I didn't feel anything when they officialized their relationship, not even a pang of jealousy, which meant I was really over Pamela. So I called the whole family for a meeting. It had been since I had hatred and hunger for vengeance towards my cousin and Pamela, so it was time to let things be and let bygones be bygones. Not for them, but for my conscience and peace. I didn't want my family to keep hating me for something I would have long done. So during the meeting, I asked them to call Pam and my cousin. When everyone was there, I then told them that I was forgiving them and gave them my blessings to their relationship. After I had told them that, I then took the beaded bracelet that Pam had given me when she chose me and gave it back to her so she can give it to the right person, since I was no longer her man. Another month passed. My cousin asked me to accompany him to ask for a hand in marriage for Pam at her homestead. I knew my cousin was somehow cheesy, but he should have known at least half of our traditions, since he also grew up in the village. My father had gotten better after I had released my heart and appeased the ancestors for my behavior. So he told my cousin that Pamela was lawfully and ancestrally married to me, meaning she belonged to my family clans, so if he wanted to ask for Pam's hand in marriage, he should do that to me. I had never thought that such a facade would one day happen to me, like having to hand my wife, or must I say ex-wife, to my cousin. It was just unbelievable. I still believed that they would somehow break up and realize their wrongs. I had once asked Pam why she gave me the beaded bracelet if she wanted to be with my cousin, and what I got was she was advised by her mother that she should choose me in the reed dance because I would be able to take care of her and her family, so she had to pause her relationship with my cousin. How crazy is that? So she told me that she knew that I would be able to take her to school and build her home because I had a good-paying job and my cousin was still a student. That was why she chose to go to Durban University of Technology, so she can be able to see and be with my cousin, meaning that she used me for her own and her family's benefit. I wouldn't have been surprised if her mother also advised her to say that the child was mine, knowing very well that there was no possible way the child would have been mine. I was no longer angry or disappointed, but I was aggrieved, so she chose me because I was a meal ticket to her. I was going to be Bob the Builder in her home and be the student fund in her studies. I couldn't say anything anymore, but I was glad that she had told me the whole truth at the end. Her bride price was paid and she was officially out of my life. Did I deal with the situation in the wrong way? Please advise me.